The bell hanging above the door gave a soft, lingering chime as Naomi turned the key in the lock, gently closing the door to her charming, old-fashioned bookstore for the evening. It was one of those quiet moments that made her feel like she was stepping into another world, a world where time slowed down, and every sound carried a promise of peace and calm. Outside, the evening was unfolding in its own relaxed, almost magical way, with the sky painted in soft shades of lavender that bathed the cobblestone sidewalk in a dreamy glow. It was as if dusk itself was inviting her to linger a little longer, to enjoy this perfect slice of serenity before the night took over. Naomi paused right there at the doorstep, taking a deep breath as she sank into the stillness of the shop. The quiet hum of the day was finally winding down, and the gentle silence of the bookstore wrapped itself around her like a comforting blanket. Today had been one of those rare, slow-paced days that let her truly enjoy each moment. Earlier in the afternoon, several familiar faces had wandered in, regular customers whose warm smiles and relaxed chatter filled the space with a friendly, homely atmosphere. They had chatted over their favorite books, their voices mingling with the soft rustling of pages and the occasional laughter that brightened the cozy corners of her little shop. In the midst of these gentle interactions, Naomi had spent hours carefully arranging a new window display. She had spent the day thoughtfully mixing soft, ambient lighting with the rich, earthy tones of autumn leaves. A well-loved book of poetry was prominently placed, its open pages catching the light just right so that every flicker of movement made it seem as if the words were dancing to a silent tune. Even a playful breeze, sneaking in through the tiny gaps of the window frame, sent the pages fluttering with a delicate charm. It was these simple acts, a careful blend of art and nature, that made her bookstore feel like a living storybook of its own. But as the sun dipped lower and the growing shadows lengthened outside, Naomi knew it was time to slip into her personal evening routine, a series of little rituals that brought as much comfort to her soul as they did to her everyday life. She headed toward the back of the store, where a small, snug kitchenette waited behind an old, gracefully creaking staircase. The staircase itself was like a relic from another time, its steps echoing memories of countless evenings, just like this one, when magic and quiet reflection mingled in the air. Inside the kitchenette, Naomi filled a well-worn kettle with water and set it upon the stove. The flame beneath the kettle flickered as it warmed the water, creating a soft, whispering whoosh that blended perfectly with the familiar background hum of the store. After a few moments, she reached for her favorite blend of tea, a soothing mix that combined the delicate calm of chamomile with the zesty brightness of orange peel and a hint of rose petals for a touch of romance. With a tender smile, she placed a tea bag into her cherished ceramic mug, a mug speckled with tiny imperfections that she had collected over years of use, its surface catching the low, warm light that filled the room. As she waited for the water to heat, she began to wind down the store's lighting. One by one, she switched off the overhead lights until only the gentle glows of carefully arranged table lamps remained, along with a string of twinkling fairy lights that draped along the neatly lined shelves. These light sources bathed the rows of books in a golden light, each spine and cover forming a silent archive of countless adventures, whispered secrets, and memorable moments. In that soft light, the books seemed to pulse with a quiet energy, each one a testament to the simple magic of stories. With the tea now steeping and filling the space with its inviting aroma, Naomi decided it was time to indulge in one of her favorite comforts, moving around barefoot. She slipped off her shoes and let her feet gently sink into the polished wooden floor. The wood creaked softly with every step, its creaks and groans a familiar and almost musical reminder of the history of her beloved shop. It always made her smile, thinking of how every sound was part of a gentle symphony that played in tune with her heartbeat. After walking through the bookstore, she stopped by the front counter to light a small candle. The candle was special. It carried a subtle but deeply comforting scent of vanilla mingled with earthy sandalwood. As it burned, the fragrance spread slowly throughout the shop, mixing with that lingering aura of old books and tender memories. It was as if the candle was telling her that everything was exactly as it should be, a feeling that filled her with a warm sense of well-being and a reminder to appreciate the simple, everyday moments. Cradling her now fragrant cup of tea in both hands, Naomi moved to her favorite little retreat within the bookstore, a quiet reading nook nestled cozily between two tall, well-loved bookshelves. In that nook sat a plush, inviting armchair, covered in a patchwork quilt that looked like it had been lovingly sewn by someone who understood the art of comfort. Next to her armchair was a tiny round table on which lay a weathered notebook and a pen that had recorded no fewer than 1,000 fleeting thoughts and cherished memories over its lifetime. Slipping into the armchair, wrapped snugly in her patchwork sweater and the soft blanket, Naomi settled in with her tea and let out a slow, contented sigh. The warmth of the tea seeped through her fingers and up into her arms, spreading a sense of calm that was both physical and soulful. On this quiet evening, with the world outside gradually fading into a gentle play of shadows and soft trails of footsteps on the sidewalk, everything felt as if it were perfectly arranged for a moment of pure relaxation. For a while, she simply sat there, her thoughts wandering among the familiar stories that lined the shelves around her. The pages of a book she had been eager to return to opened before her eyes, inviting her into a world of tender narratives and heartfelt characters. The words flowed easily as she read, carrying her along like a gentle lullaby, each sentence assuring her of the peace that can only be found when one loses oneself in a good story. Every once in a while, she paused to sip her tea or to glance around the softly lit room, taking in every detail, the comforting glow of the fairy lights, the inviting presence of the ancient books, and the lingering aroma of vanilla and sandalwood that powered a gentle reminder of home. After a good while of reading and letting her mind be carried off by the book, Naomi decided to shift her attention to her personal journal. She set the book aside with care and opened her well-worn notebook. With slow, deliberate strokes of her pen, she began jotting down a list of simple, heartfelt gratitudes. Today, she wrote about the kindness of a thoughtful customer who had paused to exchange warm words, the excitement she felt upon hearing about a new poetry collection that had just arrived in her shop, and even about the subtle, reassuring smell of fresh paper that had greeted her when she opened a delivery box earlier in the day. Writing things down in her journal always brought her a profound sense of satisfaction, a feeling that affirmed her belief in the power of everyday miracles and small joys. The soothing effect of the tea, along with the peaceful ambiance of her shop, slowly lifted a quiet drowsiness over Naomi. Recognizing the feeling as the gentle arrival of night, she carefully gathered her mug and her notebook, knowing that it was time to wrap up the evening's rituals and make her way to her little sanctuary. This sanctuary wasn't a faraway home, but rather a small, intimate room tucked away at the back of the bookstore, a private space that doubled as her living quarters and her haven for rest and reflection. The transition felt like a natural progression from the communal calm of the bookstore to the deeply personal peace of her own little world. In the quiet back room, Naomi changed out of her work clothes and slipped into a pair of soft, worn-in cotton pajamas. The pajamas, much like the rest of her night, had a reassuring quality, a promise of comfort and relaxation that felt especially welcome on cool autumn evenings like this one. Standing before a small mirror, she rinsed her face with warm water that felt as gentle as a summer rain, smoothing away the fatigue of a day well spent among books and soft conversations. A dollop of rose-scented lotion, delicate and refreshing, was then massaged into her skin, adding just the right touch of softness to her evening routine. The scent reminded her of blossoms in early spring, a comforting reminder that beauty was all around, even when the days were growing short and the air turned crisp. After finishing her simple preparations, Naomi moved over to her modest bedroom, a space that was as much a retreat as it was a personal shrine to comfortable living. The room was bathed in the soft glow of a single bedside lamp, and as she slowly opened the window, just a crack, the cool night air wove its way into the space. Outside, the distant sounds of the city, the low hum of traffic, the gentle patter of footsteps on damp pavement, blended with the occasional whisper of a night breeze. It was a soundscape that assured Naomi of the world outside, yet also reminded her that her little room was a cocoon of calm and safety. Sliding under her warm, cozy covers felt like a reward after the day's work, a moment to simply be, to let go of the bustle of the day and sink into a state of gentle slumber. She reached out, turning off the bedside lamp slowly, watching as the soft lights faded into the stillness of the night. Satisfied that her room was perfectly quiet and inviting, Naomi settled her head onto her pillow. With a long, slow exhale, she let go of every lingering thought, each breath carrying away the residual hum of the day, until all that was left was the serene promise of sleep. Even as Naomi's eyes began to close, the bookstore still stood in peaceful repose behind her. The rows of books, now silent and waiting for another day of stories to be told, seemed almost to murmur their own quiet farewells to the fading day. The gentle aroma of the candle remained, mingling with the soft notes of vanilla and sandalwood that clung lovingly to the walls of the shop. It was as if every nook and cranny had absorbed a bit of the day's warmth and was now exuding a promise of another, equally calm tomorrow. Lying there in her small sanctuary, Naomi thought about the day that had passed. It had been a day filled with simple pleasures, a day when every little detail, from the chime of the doorbell to the soft shimmer of the fairy lights, had contributed to an overall sense of ease that was almost tangible. She remembered the friendly chatter with her regular customers, the artful care she had taken with her window display, and even the simple joy of savoring her perfectly steeped tea. All those moments, though small and seemingly insignificant in the broader tapestry of life, had woven together to form a day that resonated deeply with her spirit. As her breathing grew slower and her mind drifted further into the realm of dreams, Naomi knew that these small routines were not just part of her daily schedule, they were the essence of what made life beautiful. Each act of care, each meticulously arranged detail in her bookstore, and every quiet moment taken just for herself was a quiet celebration of the life she had built around her passion for books and stories. And now, as the soft murmur of the nighttime city hummed in the background and the first signs of sleep began to wash over her, she allowed herself to surrender completely to the gentle draw of rest. Before she finally let go into sleep, Naomi reflected for a moment on the simple joys that made her life so special. The friendly exchanges that brightened her day, the quiet corners of her bookstore where whispered tales lingered between the pages of well-loved books, and the personal, almost sacred rituals of her evening routine all served as reminders of how beautifully ordinary life could be. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic events. It was about savoring each heartbeat, each shared smile, and every soft sound that marked the passing hours. And in that thought, there was a gentle, reassuring truth that every day, even the most ordinary one, held its own quiet magic. As the night deepened and the promise of dreams grew stronger, Naomi gave herself over to the embrace of sleep. The silent, comforting world of her bookstore stayed with her, and even as she drifted off, she could still taste the lingering flavor of chamomile tea and feel the gentle warmth of the fairy lights glow faintly in her memory. In the end, it was clear that in both her bookstore and her little home behind it, everything was arranged just as it should be, each element contributing to a peaceful, fulfilled existence. Slowly, with a heart full of gratitude and a mind eased by the day's gentle pleasures, Naomi slipped away from the conscious world and into a deep, restorative sleep. Outside, the soft footsteps on the cobblestone, the subdued murmur of the city, and the whispering breeze all joined together, harmonizing in the background as they played a lullaby just for her, a lullaby of simple comforts, cherished stories, and the unspoken promise that come morning, she would awaken once again to share in the quiet wonder and gentle magic of her little world. In that tranquil night, wrapped in the simplicity of soft blankets and tender memories, Naomi's heart rested easy. Her soul, nourished by the art of everyday living, found solace in the thought that tomorrow would bring another chance to enjoy these small miracles, a new page, a fresh chapter, a subtle unfolding of beauty in the ordinary. And so, in the tender quiet of that intimate space, the bookstore and her personal sanctuary remained quietly intertwined, a perfect blend of stories and dreams, of love, and the relentless pursuit of a life well lived. As the stars began to twinkle outside her barely open window, each one a faint promise of secrets yet to be discovered, Naomi let herself be carried away by the gentle rhythm of sleep. The soft murmur of memories, of friendly voices, of fluttering pages in the window display, of the warm chatter of old friends, and of the reassuring aroma of tea and candle wax, echoed around her like a gentle symphony. With a final peaceful thought about how even the simplest day could hold endless wonder, Naomi surrendered to the night, confident that every new day would unfurl with the same quiet ease, and that her little bookstore would once again be filled with beautiful moments as the soft, golden morning light returned. And so, amid the calm of the fading day and the promise of a brand new dawn, Naomi's heart rested in the gentle, ever-present magic of the night. a reminder that no matter how ordinary life might seem, there's always a wonder waiting to be savored, a story waiting to be told, and a peaceful sleep just around the corner.